Thank you. Do you feel what's in this room? There's so much love in this room, and I feel like Chris and his incredible team bring this energy and attract all of you incredible souls. Thank you for being so loving. I feel like the one thing every human being really wants is to feel seen. And I think that's why everyone comes here, because when you show up here, you feel seen. I want you to take a second and close your eyes. And I want you to ask yourself this question. What did you come here to hear? Why did you come here this weekend, this week? What did you come here to hear? What do you need to hear? What do you need to be reminded of? What do you need to have permission to do? Okay, open your eyes. So, all week and throughout the amazing keynote speakers, people have been sharing things with you and sharing themselves with you. And I just want to acknowledge you, and I want to tell you that if anything I say feels true, it's because you knew that already. You knew that. I'm just reminding you of what you know. And I'm going to talk to you about a few things that I think might help. But I really want to get across one message. And so I'm going to tell you this, and then I'm going to tell you the rest. But this is the most important thing that I could tell you, and it is the truth. Every single one of you is an original. There never was you, and there never will be you. You are unique. There are no extras. My daughter has twin girls who are her best friends, and they're identical, and they have different fingerprints. What's the evolutionary need for every person to have a different imprint? Unless every person makes a different imprint in this world. So if you're here, you matter. You've been assigned. You've been assigned. You've been assigned. You've been assigned to inspire and to repair and to make this world more whole. And if you weren't here, then that'd be the only way we would know that you didn't have something to add, but you are. So don't sit it out. So why do people sit it out? Because they second guess themselves, because they don't think they're enough. But you are. What if I told you that exactly as you are, with all your scars and all your bruises, you are worthy of being heard, of being loved, and you have something so valuable that only you can say. It's the truth. I looked at that board. Marcia had such a great idea to have everyone talk about their stuff, which we all have. We all suffer from imposter syndrome. We all give ourselves a hard time. And everyone's basically saying the same things. We don't think we're enough. Every single person feels that way. But we all know, and your best friends all know, that when you're looking at that person, even right now you're looking at me up here, and you're loving me and giving me so much support, and I can feel it. I don't have to earn it. You just gave it to me. And the world is giving that to you all the time, but you're being so cruel to yourself. So I host this podcast called Don't Keep Your Day Job, and I've had this delightful human, Chris Gillibo, on my show, as well as Jonathan Fields, and Gretchen Rubin, and many people who've been successful being themselves, being out of the box, figuring out a way to do what they loved. We've had Mandy Moore and Bobby Brown, the makeup artist, and Jonathan Adler, who's a designer, and lots of different people, Jenna Fisher from The Office. And all of these people also feel like sometimes they're not enough. In fact, at the end of most of the interviews, people will say the same thing. How was that? Was that okay? And I go, yeah, I got you. You're good. So what makes a person successful? What is it? How does a person get to be standing here? Because all of you have so much, something so magical that only is inside of you. So why aren't we yet doing it? Or how can we do more of it? How can we be more successful? What are the things? What are the through lines? So there's 3 through lines that I've found in interviewing about 80 people so far, and in my own journey. And they have to do with grit. Grit is a big one. There's also something, which we'll talk about in a second, called radical empathy. And the last one is alignment. So we're going to talk about that and how that might apply to you and maybe what you can do with that. So when I started my podcast, I didn't think there was any reason why I should, because there were already a few podcasts out there. And what did it matter what I had to say? But you ever have that experience where you're talking to someone and you've heard this thing that they're saying before, but for some reason when this person says it, it just clicks? Well, that's because in this world, we all have different sort of frequencies and vibrations and tastes, and there's certain podcasts that people listen to and they're like, that's my girl. And there are other ones that are like, eh. And that's what's cool about the world. There's like this democracy. We can love different things and not like other things. You will find your tribe because no one was ever you or will be you. And so no one ever will say things the way you will. No one will ever see it exactly as you will. And you will find a tribe of people who is so grateful that you went ahead and did that. So when I first recorded my first episode, I was sitting in my closet, so overthinking it, so stressed out. I re-recorded the episode, I think 8 times, and the episodes were like 45 to 55 minutes. So I was like exhausted. And at the end, I thought to myself, I can't do it this way, because then I'll never do it. So what am I going to have to do? I'm going to have to be courageous enough to tell mediocre stories and not be perfect so I can get better. So I have a question, and I think this is a big question, if not the biggest question. What might happen in our life if we were willing to tolerate being uncomfortable? Life is uncomfortable. Sometimes, oftentimes. Being in a relationship can be uncomfortable and scary. You have to be vulnerable. You can get your heart broken. You can get disappointed. You have to learn to grow. And a lot of things are uncomfortable. One of the things that I find is the thing that keeps people back the most, though, is this unwillingness to tolerate their own inadequacy. If I can't create the most beautiful symphony the first time I sit at the piano, I can't bear it. But that's not life. That's not real. Serena Williams didn't walk out to the court the first time and be what you see her being. So we compare our behind-the-scenes mess to other people's highlight reels, and that is a mistake. So if you want to do your thing, whether it's opening up your pie shop, or you want to have a yoga studio, or you want to have a podcast or a blog, or you already do, and you want it to grow, you need to be kinder to yourself and show up and let it not be perfect. It's beautiful that way. It's amazing that way. Have you ever gone back and looked at the first videos that Gary Vee put up on YouTube? Has anyone seen these? He's like sitting at this folding table. He's like, hey, how's it going? I'm Gary Vaynerchuk. And he's wearing his like sweater vest. And thank goodness he let himself show up. And he showed up some more. And now he's not selling wine. He's selling ambition and positivity, and he's speaking to millions of people. But this is really, truly the same story that I have heard on my podcast with every successful person. this woman, her name is Tamara Mellon, she started a company called Jimmy Choo. I interviewed her, and she talked about how the first 3 times, it took years, like making one shoe, then she designed the second, then the third, over like a couple of years. And every time they'd come back, she'd be like, these are horrible, I can't put these out, I can't sell these, you know? And she kept going back until finally she got them back and she said, these are good. And it's a funny story because she had this tiny little 300 square foot shop in a part of London that she says was not very good. And Candace Bushnell, who worked on a little show called Sex and the City, walked into the shop and bought 2 pairs of shoes, a pair for herself and a pair for Sarah Jessica Parker. And we know the rest of that story because Jimmy Choo basically became like a character on the show because she obsessed so much over these shoes. And this little shop became a $1.5 billion company. And the woman who started it had been in rehab with no job prospects, sitting there with a drug addiction when she decided, I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to do something I really want to do. And she made those shoes. But first, it took her many attempts at making shoes that she didn't like. And this is literally the same story with every person who's been on the show. So we have to be willing to not do it perfectly. Can you do that?
Oh, yeah.
All right. But can you give yourself the permission to do that and be consistent and show up and show up and show up and keep doing it? Because that's what it's going to take. You need to be willing to keep putting things out there. Recently, I had an echocardiogram, and the doctor says, okay, go into this room, put this on, and they put this little thing under my breastbone, and he's like, all right, I'm like, this is a little uncomfortable. How long is this going to take, like a few minutes? And he's like 30 minutes. I said, well, doesn't your heart beat for, like, I don't know, 80 to 100 times a minute? He's like, yeah. I said, so why do you need 30 minutes of this? That's thousands of heartbeats. He said, because we have to look at it. So what we do is we sell ourselves short. We quit too soon. It takes time for you to have data, to be able to look at something and assess something and then go back and make it better. Give yourself the time. Get a photo of yourself when you were like 4 or 5. Put it next to yourself whenever you're working. If you're writing music, if you're a potter sitting at a potter's wheel, whatever your work is, and put that child's photo right there, you. Don't be cruel to that child, right? You wouldn't do that to a little kid. You'd say, great, keep going. Keep going. Because what happens is when you keep pushing forward, brilliant things start to come out. And you get better and better and better. Ed Sheeran is one of my favorite songwriters, and he says, I think this is such a great analogy. He said, if you went to Vermont, you hadn't been skiing for a while, and you go into the cabin and you go to turn on the faucet, and it hasn't been used in a while, what comes out of that faucet? Exactly. It's like brown, sludgy water. So you don't go, all right, well, that's it. And you leave. No water. You let the water run for a little bit, just a little bit. It gets clearer and clearer and clearer. But we don't do this for ourselves. And there's so much good. There's so much talent and so many delicious ideas and so much good stuff that never sees the light of day. The end. It's because we don't let it have that opportunity because we're so hard on ourselves. But guess what? You're bigger than all of this. You're a soul in a body. So you're multifaceted. You're so much bigger than this one drawing, than this one blog post. So what? Let it out. And guess what's the craziest thing? The most intoxicating, sexy, awesome thing you can do is be vulnerable. Because we are so all wanting to be seen and to connect. And we scroll through Facebook and we scroll through Instagram and we say, what is wrong with me? I didn't have that perfect vacation. My husband and I had an argument. My kids are throwing things. I'm not this perfect. So the more you give yourself permission to say, here I am, I'm not perfect. And other people say, hey, me neither. And then they look at you and say, oh, that's so cool. You just kind of like put yourself out there. It takes tremendous courage to let yourself want what you want. Because what happens if you don't get it? To sit on the bench and watch the game, you don't have to face that you might lose. It's like every 80s movie you've ever seen where Anthony Michael Hall is like wanting to go ask this girl out on a date, and you're like kind of not wanting him to do it because you don't want him to get disappointed. But every movie we all love is because there's a hero who let themselves want what they want. That is the hardest stuff. Because what if I get up to bat and I lose? A couple of years ago, I had a friend who passed away of brain cancer. It's really awful. And she was young, and she had 2 little kids. And her husband was devastated, depressed. I don't even know a word for it. And he has 2 little boys. And you know what? About a year after she passed away, she told him, I want you to be happy. Don't be a martyr. Take care of yourself. Find somebody. Be with somebody. You know what? He got up to bat. He just got married. That's courage. When I was a kid, my favorite movie was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. How many people have seen this movie and love it? Yes! We can all agree on this movie. So this movie for me, when I was a kid, you'd say, oh, you love it because there's candy in this movie. I have 3 little girls. They could eat candy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Candy is great. The reason I love this movie is because of one moment. So Charlie Bucket is this little boy. He doesn't have anything. They have very, very, very little money. In fact, they just have like cabbage water. That's all they have to eat. And he has a birthday coming up, and his grandfather knows that he really wants to win this golden ticket. And the mother says, oh, Dad, don't spend the money. We don't really have it. He says, but he wants it so bad. He wants it so bad. And so he gets in this chocolate bar, which I always wondered, how does he do it? Because he stays in the bed the whole movie. So I'm like, whatever. So he gets in this chocolate bar, and he waits up at night, and he sits by his bed, and he's like, here. And so together, slowly, they open up this chocolate bar, and there's no golden ticket. And he says to his grandfather, Grandpa, I bet the golden ticket makes the chocolate taste terrible. He wants to make him feel better. So that's not the scene I'm talking about. This is just how I'm setting it up for you. So then, what happens is they find out that there's one golden ticket left. And he's walking down the street. He's thinking about it. And he sees a silver coin. And I do believe that what you seek is seeking you. So look for magic, because it's everywhere. So he sees it, and he bends down and he picks it up. And he's holding it, and he looks at the candy store. And he looks back at the coin. And he's thinking, should I get up to bat? Well, what if I just lose the money and I don't get it? I don't know if I can handle it. And he keeps looking at the store, and then he walks into that store. And he asks for it. And the guy hands it to him. And he walks outside, he goes, thank you. He walks outside and he opens it. And there it is. And it's amazing. And the music starts to play, and this postman who knows him, again, everybody knows everybody in these movies. He's like, run straight home and don't stop till you get there. And he runs. And, the music is playing, and everyone feels this moment because we all want to be brave enough to do that. We want to be brave enough to get up and tell ourselves, I do really want this. I won't rationalize it away. So many people are so unhappy, And that was really my motivation to do what I've done or what I'm doing or what I'm still figuring out that I'm doing with my life. When I was growing up, my mom was suffering from depression. My dad had a tremendous amount of anger and anxiety, and my parents got divorced. And when they got divorced, even though it was kind of a relief because the fighting in the house was so hard, and I felt so invisible because my parents were so busy fighting, when they got divorced, it was a relief on one hand, but it was also really, really tough. My mom, she really slipped into a very serious depression, and she was suicidal, and I was living with that as a kid. And I used to bring her flowers and give her pep talks and put little things by her bed, little trinkets and little quotes and whatever. And then one day I said to her, wait a minute. I kind of got like upset. I said, you know why you can't kill yourself? What about me? Huh? I never thought of that before. And she said, you're not enough. That's a big statement. And the thing is, I can't really be angry with her because she was in such a terrible place that it wasn't enough for her to think about me because she wasn't putting two and two together in this moment. See, I think that everybody's trying to be happy, right? Everyone's chasing happiness. If I buy this outfit, it'll make me happier. If I'm with this person, it'll make me happier. But I don't think the opposite of depression is being happy. I think the opposite of depression is purpose. It's knowing that you have something to contribute. And so I don't think she thought she did anymore. But she didn't realize I was like her biggest fan. And to me, having a mom who could just sit with you or talk to you or just make space for you, that's a big purpose in this world. So anyway, I went on my journey sort of looking for purpose. And when it was really hard for me to get through high school. In fact, the last day of my senior year is the day I found out I was actually going to graduate because I had horrible grades and I barely showed up to class. And my homeroom teacher just had mercy on me. And he was like, I just passed you. Just go. And I was like, great. Get me out of here. And so I left. And my dad and I hadn't spoken for a long time. He was really not in my life. I had so many days. I remember those years in high school where I was like, if I just swerved into the ocean, would anybody notice? It's a really hard time. And so I barely got into college. And when I got there, I went summer session because they were like, oh, look at your grades. Okay, well, you could just start in the summer and we'll put you on academic probation and hopefully you'll... Anyway, I started to look for meaning. I was like, can I get credit just for studying, like meaning? Yeah, go to the humanities building. I was like, okay, cool. Those are my people. So I just started studying things like Southeastern Asian religion and anthropology and why are we on the planet. And I wound up taking a random trip to Israel. I'm Jewish, but I grew up only knowing 3 things about being Jewish, which was Woody Allen, Lox and Bagels, and Mel Brooks. That was it. And I wound up going to Israel, and I was supposed to be there for 2 weeks, and I just stayed for 3 years, walking around Jerusalem. And I guess what I figured out while I was there is that there's a lot more that we can't see with our eyes that's going on, but you know it, you feel it. It's like I say to my daughter, she goes, well, who do you love more, me or, my sisters? I said, I love you all the same. She goes, well, show it to me. I said, well, here, put out your hand. I'll put love. I'll show you love, right? I'll put it in your hand. It's not possible, but you know it's there, right? It's just like there's things you just know, you just feel. So walking the streets of Jerusalem and learning mysticism, and I just learned that we all have a soul and we're all here for a reason. And I decided to come to Los Angeles to pursue how I could add my color to the world. And I thought, maybe I'll get like a record, like like a recording contract, because growing up, the only thing I liked doing was music, but I didn't know that there was anything between here and being Beyonce. So anyway, I got a job, I got an apartment, I had no money, no nothing. And a lot of people will tell you if they don't have what they want, that the reason they don't have it is because they don't have the resources, right? They don't have the time, they don't have the money, they don't have the contacts. But we all know that's not true. Because the greatest resource is your own resourcefulness and your own passion and truly showing up for other people and making a space for other people. That opens doors. Anyway, I wound up getting a record deal. I got dropped from a label. I got another record deal, got dropped, and then I put on a pantsuit and tried to get like a day job. And I walked into, got a real estate license. And then I worked at an interior design firm. And then it was like Barbie, like astronaut Barbie, vet Barbie. And I was like doing all these things. And anyway, I wound up figuring out how to take my music and license it to ads for McDonald's. And I have all these songs that are really inspirational, like Let Your Colors Shine, and Heart of a Hero, and We're Good Together. A lot of these happy songs. Anyway, and they found their home in TV shows and trailers and ads, and I wound up making a career. And then fast forward, I was written about in like Billboard and Variety, these like full-page stories, and I was this girl who made a living writing music for TV and film. And after that, I just kept trying things. I then tried, I opened an agency helping other artists. Then I started to teach an online course helping artists, songwriters. And then after that, I started a podcast a couple of years ago. So what I've learned, and I told you, is you don't need to be perfect because you are good where you're at. Just have the courage to keep going. But the last thing we need to talk about, it's this alignment piece. See, sometimes people are going as fast as they can, as hard as they can, but they're not quite in alignment with their soul, with themselves, with what they have to share. There's this amazing word called an ikigai. You guys know what an ikigai is? Yeah, it's this combination of three things: what you're great at, what the world wants from you, and what you love. But sometimes you do something, and you, like that echocardiogram, you do it enough that you can assess and get some data, and you hear the world saying, I know you want to be an actor, but you're such a good writer, or you're such a good director. So I think we have to have the humility to be willing to pivot and shift and listen to where the world is leading us, because it's so much beyond our wildest dreams. Who knew that I would be writing a book and doing a podcast when I thought I was going to be, wearing clothes that I didn't feel comfortable in and writing songs about things that I didn't really love, which is what I was doing at that record label. So I want you to trust that you will be led to where you can make the biggest difference in this world. And I don't want you to hold on so tight to what your ego thinks that you're supposed to be. I want you to do, and I want you to try, and I want you to know that you're amazing and you're enough, and keep going, and then listen to where you're being led. And everybody I've had on has done this. And the last thing is radical empathy. When I had Seth Godin on the podcast, he said, at the heart of every great endeavor, including this conference, and you can feel it, at the heart of anything successful is radical empathy. And I think that combines both the things we're saying, because I don't think you can have empathy unless you are empathetic to yourself and show up and just be who you are. And also, I think in order to find alignment, you have to have the empathy to listen and say, where can I serve? Where can I use my gifts? And what is the world saying? I want this from you. I need this from you. So, to conclude, the take-home message: no one else is you. That is your superpower. Do you get me? Yes. Now, if you're inspired this weekend or right now or whenever, I want you to make a decision and commit to do something about how you feel right now, because the world needs you. And the best gift is you. Thank you, guys.